Where's my camera? Okay, I'm there. So, good morning to everybody. My name is Barry Phillips, and you're very welcome to this dip into the week's news in terms of employment law developments. And there's an awful lot that's happened this week, which I think is going to be of interest. The Equality Commission Northern Ireland has settled two equality cases this week, one involving sectarian harassment and the other involving a disabled student at university. As always, we've had a coronavirus update in terms of new regulations and what we can and cannot do this week. But in terms of case reviews, it's been really interesting. We've got Jason Elliott this week, who's a barrister, who's focusing on two cases that deal both with whistleblowing. And this week we heard from a lot of experts who were saying that surveillance has really taken off during the COVID pandemic. But it's not so much surveillance that has caught my attention this week. It's news that's actually come as far away from New Zealand, where the New Zealand government are currently contemplating introducing a 4-day working week. And by that I mean is paying employees for 5 days, but just asking them or expecting them to do work for 4 days. This, I think, is a really interesting issue because Ireland has been also considering doing a similar thing. At least it's something that their civil service is contemplating. So it's the thing that I want to zoom on this week. And I'm delighted to have Linzi Conway joining us to talk about this. Linzi is an HR expert in Northern Ireland, also a radio and a TV personality. And Linzi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Barry?
I'm very well, Linzi. Thank you very much for joining us. Delighted to have you on the show. Linzi, I know you've been following this story this week. Question I have for you is this. Do you think the 4-day week is little more than a marketing gimmick, or is it actually something we should take more seriously than that?
I personally think it's something that we need to take more seriously as a body of HR professionals. I mean, if you look at some of the statistics around this, you would see it's not just a gimmick. Some of the studies that have come out indeed from New Zealand and from Microsoft Japan, who ran a study in August 2019, it quite clearly showed that there was an increase in staff satisfaction, fewer days off sick, there was better rates of productivity, even down to things that you may not even think of consideration around environmental issues. There was less paperwork generated, there was more use of online platforms, greater collaboration. So for me personally, it's most definitely something that we need to be thinking about.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose the notion that the idea behind it, Linzi, is simply that we work smarter rather than longer. And certainly a few companies have tried it, have introduced it on the basis by doing some sort of deal with employees, haven't they? They've sort of said, okay, if you'll promise to work smarter and more efficiently, we'll promise to give you an extra day off in the week, and we'll pay you as though you've worked every day of the week. And I can see that happening at the beginning, but do you think there's a danger that might happen for a while? Employees will work very hard and concentrate and really try to work smarter for the first few months, but then gradually that will sort of fade away. And really what will happen is that employers will effectively be receiving 4 days of quite average productivity, but actually be paying employees for 5 days.
Well, I think it's worth saying that it's not going to work for every single organisation and every single industry. And to my mind, a certain amount of this is down to the organisational culture. And I mean, one of the phrases that I loved that I heard from Conor Curran, who's the head of diversity and inclusion from Queen's University in Belfast, and I was a talk that Conor had given, and he talked about bringing the whole person to work, and it really struck with me, and it has stayed with me. And even looking at this issue, Barry, it's about how we can make our working lives more productive and in line with what we want to do outside of work as well. And for me, some organisations will get this very much absolutely on the money from a cultural point of view. They have trained their managers. There's an issue that they've taken account very heavily of diversity in the workplace and the fact that we are all different. And I think from that perspective, you know, like it will work very well for some companies and maybe not so well for others. I mean, one of the things that I thought was lovely when I was reading about this study as well, we're in the midst, obviously, of the worst pandemic that we've had, certainly in our lifetime. And it's been nearly a large social experiment. And I've worked with a number of companies, and the feedback that I'm getting from an anecdotal level is the sheer volume of staff that they've had to work in a different setting from a remote point of view, and how they've actually had to be innovative to be in touch with those people and move very quickly from monitoring people in the workforce to actually looking at their outputs on a day-to-day basis. And that's going to be a shift for a lot of companies. And certainly, if you look at it even from the pandemic point of view, where our economy has suffered, if we were working a 4-day week and the right culture was there with the right management approach to the rollout of this, the right diversity policies and procedures are in place, that one day that staff have to do, if you like, what they want on their given week, they can go shopping, they can go to the cinema, they can go to the theatres, they can go to gyms, they can spend more time with family and friends. And that's going to have, if you like, the rising tide lifting all boats, an impact on our economy as well. So I think, you know, yes, it's something that we should be seriously looking at, and looking at the models of best practice that have come out of the pandemic for some of the companies that are operating and have had to really very quickly move to remote working or restructuring their workforce or you know, working in different work patterns. And it's doable, but it has to have the right culture.
And Linzi, you mentioned there the rising tide that lifts all boats. If this was implemented in the public sector and the majority of the third and private sector, can I ask you this? Could you see yourself as a consultant, self-employed, doing 4 days a week rather than 5 yourself?
Barry, my working week, you've known me probably nearly feels like a lifetime here in my work journey. And the reason why I like doing what I am doing is because I can chart my own course. And you know, the projects that I work on, I deliberately became self-employed to give me that, I suppose, to a certain extent, luxury of managing my day and managing my timetable. So I haven't been working a standard 5-day week since 2001. So I nearly feel as if I've been doing this at the front end and feel like it works for me. I know, talking to some of my friends, that it doesn't work for them. They like some structure around their family life. They like knowing that they're there for a 9-to-5 day over a certain number of days a week. But for me, it absolutely works. I can flex and take on projects or turn the tap off as and when it sits. So I don't really know what a 5-day working week feels like, Barry. It could be, some weeks it could be over 7 days, but only a half day of that 7-day week. It could be evening work. And for me, I absolutely thrive on the variety of it.
Yeah, Linzi, as you was telling me that, I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking probably it's more a question of getting you down to 5 days from 7 or even 8 in the week, something like that. But Linzi, as always, it's good to chat. Thank you very much for your time, and speak soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.